Ladies and gentlemen, as official town crier for the city of Barrie, I bring you news of the greatest importance. Be it known, you can follow me on a virtual walking tour of a part of Barrie that's very, very rarely shown. What part is it, I hear you ask? It's the Simcoe County Jail. There she is, the Simcoe County Jail. So if you're enjoying our virtual Winterfest celebration this year, 2021, then join me now as I tell you all about the Simcoe County Jail. Remember that in the early 1800s, Barrie was filled with all sorts of wonderful pioneers. But we also had some rogues and scoundrels too. Yes, bad guys who ended up in here, and rightly so. And I shall tell you now who and what they did. Barrie, when it was just a town, not even a city, in the early 1800s, what did it look like? Well, it looked like a Wild West town. See that? Believe it or not, that's the Queen's Hotel. The Queen's Hotel. And the ground was just dirt. And there were horses galloping by and carts. No cars in those days. And who were the people who populated it? Amazing pioneer guys. Look at these dudes here. They've all survived all sorts of things like cholera and diphtheria, and they're amazing, hard-working farmers, loggers, railroad men. And as you can see by all those bottles and that great big barrel, they really enjoy Kool-Aid. No, not, as you know, that they all enjoyed a drop of beer and whiskey. Yes, at the end of the week, why not have a drop of that? And whiskey in those days was relatively expensive, but the Black Swamp Gang here in Barrie provided a much cheaper variety of illegal hooch for them to consume. Ha ha ha! Oh, yes, indeed. So, here we are at the Simcoe County Jail. Some people call it the Barrie Jail, but it's the Simcoe County Jail. And believe it or not, it's the oldest stone-built building in the whole of Simcoe County. When was it made, I hear you ask? Well, let me have a look at dates and times. In 1837, magistrates raised $4,000 amazing dollars to build this jail. So it actually cost $9,000 at the end of the day. Duh, what's changed? So they wanted someone to build it and they offered the $4,000 to do it. They didn't get many people want to do it. They all thought it would cost a lot more. However, a man stepped forward called Steamboat Thompson. Was he a particularly good builder? Well, we don't really know, but he knew some good builders and he wanted a contract to do the job. Why was he called Steamboat Thompson? He owned steamboats. Hey, that was a good idea, because if you're bringing Couchiching limestone from Lake Couchiching all the way to Barrie, you had to be flip-flopping along in carts on corduroy roads in those days. Great big holes and things. Goodness me, it would take you weeks to bring this amount of stone. However, if you own steamboats, woohoo! Yes, you could bring them through Lake Couchiching, through the Narrows, onto Lake Simcoe. Yeah, in a matter of an hour. All right, they gave him the contract. Now, he decided to have an architect help him to come up with a great plan. So they chose a guy called Thomas Young, a very good architect, Thomas Young. And he designed the Simcoe Jail, and he designed the amazing tower on the top. As you can see, the tower on the top of the Simcoe Jail is an octagonal shape. Come on, my wife's a maths teacher, she taught me octagonal, 8-sided. That's right, you're right, an 8-sided tower. And why? Well, because the architect Thomas Young figured that a jailer could stand at the top of the tower and look down at the spiral staircase, and from there would be a block of cells, but instead of being square cells, they would radiate out in an octagonal fashion, so that one jailer could look down and see the 8 doors of the cells. He also believed, by the way, that by making the cells a different shape other than square, that it would make the prisoners less confined. Well, the jail was finished in 1841, and the locks didn't arrive until 1845. So needless to say, the prisoners were feeling less confined because the locks had to arrive from England. Because yes, they had simple locks on the doors, but if they wanted really fancy old jail style locks, they had to send off for them. And they were made in Birmingham, England, in the steel mills there. Now, when the jail was built, they had a jailer, and the very, very first head of all the, under jailers was a man called Moses Hayter, Hayter. He'd come over from London, England. He'd been a grocer there and came to start a farm here in Canada. He had a couple of sons to help him, but they died. They died of consumption, which of course we know is tuberculosis now. That's what we call it. The poor man almost starved. He couldn't work on the farm. He had to bury his sons. He wasn't making any money. But luckily, Moses Hayter had a friend called Samuel Lount. Yes, who was a wealthy gentleman in the town of Barrie. And Samuel Lount gave him money and what they call in those days victuals, foods and things to help support the rest of his family. So they appointed Moses Hayter, who didn't want to be a farmer anymore, to be the jailer of the Simcoe County Jail. Now, something happened in 1837, the Samuel Lount Rebellion, and Samuel Lount was on the run. He tried to escape off into the United States of America when things didn't go right for him. A group of drunken scoundrels in one of the bars in Barrie decided they were going to burn the Lount house down because the Lount family were a bit rebellious. They grabbed flaming torches and marched off to the house. However, Moses Hayter heard the news and ran to the Lount family house. He leapt on the front porch and stood there with his fists up, and he said to the gang of guys who were coming to burn the house down, "Gentlemen, before you burn the house down over the head of an innocent woman and her children, because her husband is not here, you will have to do so over the body of a dead Englishman, but not before I have taken account of at least one of you. Who's up first?" They all looked at Moses Hayter and they went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa."
No way!
He's a big dude. Fancy another beer? Yeah, okay, let's go back to the bar. So, there was an outside wall at the jail. And the wall was quite a big wall made of the same Couchiching limestone. But they put a little hole in it, a small hole, about 2 foot diameter, to pass firewood through it, to heat the place. Did anybody escape from the jail? Oops. Yes, a couple of dudes did one day. They escaped and bonked Moses Hayter's wife on the head. Ooh, and jumped out of the jail door, pushed their way past one of the guards, and then jumped through the hole in the wall where the firewood was passed through. Oh, they didn't get far. Moses Hayter and the local constabulary chased them down and caught them and brought them back. But unfortunately, Moses Hayter's wife never really quite recovered from the bonk on the head. A lot of people didn't recover after being put in this jail. Why? Because they were murderers. And murderers in the 1800s were hanged by the neck until dead. Remember? Pictures are hung, but people are hanged. Yes, indeed. The last 3 people hanged in this jail were George O'Neill, 1928, Wesley Campbell, 1932, and Lloyd Simcoe, 1945. However, singularly, the most infamous criminal was a man called James Carrruthers, who was hanged in 1873, aged 48. What did he do? Well, he murdered his poor wife, and she lay dead in the fireplace. He went into the barn and fell asleep drunken. The next morning, his family found their poor mother, and the children called for the authorities, and he was arrested, tried and convicted, and hanged in 1837. After he was dead, he killed a second time. Oh yes, he did. How the heck could he kill a second time, I hear you ask? Aha! Any ideas? It was a hot summer. His body was laid out, ready for the coroner to come from Toronto and cut him up, because they could use his body parts to demonstrate and show hearts and livers and such like to other physicians. So when you were a murderer and hanged, you weren't buried in consecrated ground. Oh no, all the murderers here are still confined to the yard here with no headstones whatsoever to show where they lie. Now they're still there. But Carruthers was lying on a slab and it was hot. And it took a while for the coroner to come clip-clopping up in his horse and cart from Toronto. He probably stopped at a couple of places to have a little bit of sustenance. When he reached Carruthers' body, it was black and bloated. He started cutting him and sectioning him up and taking his body organs. And then he cut his own hand with his scalpel. And the wicked blood of Carruthers poisoned the coroner, who died a week later. Oh, he killed twice. Oh. Now, let's have a look at that tower, because this jail right now is what we call sort of mothballed. It means it's been closed temporarily until we decide what to do with this amazing building that's a listed building. But if you want to look inside it, you would have to go elsewhere. And I'll tell you about where you would have to go. Yes, so if you like the look of that tower, you remember you could stand at the top there on the spiral staircase and look down at the 8 cells that radiate from it. Well, how can you look in the inside? It's closed, and it is. But if you travel to a little town called Godrich, their jail, designed exactly the same as ours by Thomas Young, you can go in it because it's a museum, and you can stand and look at the spiral staircase going up to the octagonal tower because it's an exact replica of our Barrie Jail. So, having told you about the Simcoe County Jail, I hope you enjoyed the stories of the scoundrels who were hanged there, and also our hero, Moses Hayter, who saved a family's house from being burned down above their heads. Remember, there are more stories from your town crier. When this COVID is over and we've all got the inoculation, I will be doing more walking tours of downtown Barrie and telling you about some of the amazing heroes and heroines that lived in our town when it was just a town before we became a wonderful city. And remember, Barrie is a wonderful city, indeed, indeed, because of the pioneers who helped build this wonderful community. We are the very gem of Simcoe County. Oh!